In 1988, 40 large stones were found at a depth of 3 meters underground during the construction of an apartment block in Holíč, western Slovakia. At first they were thought to be natural rocks, but it soon became clear that they had been worked and that they bore engravings. Researchers started to think that a Neolithic megalithic site had been stumbled upon accidentally. But the problem with this idea was that megalithic sites in the rest of Slovakia are rare or disputed, making Holíč somewhat of an anomaly. Unfortunately, none of the stones remained in situ and not all survived, making further research difficult. A new study reconstructs several of the engravings on 3 extant megaliths, compares them to Neolithic motifs found in France, Italy, and Scotland, and discusses what this site might mean for our understanding of Neolithic Central Europe. Neolithic megalithic sites in Central Europe are rare or disputed, which makes the Holíč site particularly unusual. In Germany, there are hundreds of megalithic tombs, but these were constructed by the later funnel-beaker culture and are mostly found in the north. That isn't to say that monumental construction didn't take place in Slovakia and the wider region 6,000 years ago. Central Europe has numerous Neolithic structures known as roundels, also sometimes called rondels. These circular or elliptic earthen structures were mostly constructed by the linear pottery culture across the region during the 5th millennium BCE. In Slovakia, I believe 15 Neolithic rondels have been discovered and documented over the years. Examples outside of Slovakia have been found in Germany, Austria, the Czech Republic, Hungary, and Poland. There are 3 types of rondel. One consists of a circular ditch with 2 gaps opposite each other leading into 2 causeways. Another type is made up of multiple circles of ditches with gaps at the cardinal points or at points that form astronomical alignments. And the third type is a single ring ditch. Some also had wooden palisades erected inside them. It's thought that they had a ritual function. A brilliant example is the Goseck Circle built in Saxony-Anhalt, Germany around 4900 BCE. It was reconstructed in 2005 and is open to the public. As you can see, it's made up of a ditch which measures a huge 75 meters in diameter, and it has 2 wooden palisade rings. This roundel is oriented towards the sunrise and the sunset on the winter and summer solstices. Evidence for fires at the site, along with animal and human bones, suggests it was used for rituals, possibly funerary in nature. So why am I telling you this? Well, the tradition for building these large earthen structures indicates that monumental construction and ritual were important in the region at that time. In 1988, during the construction of an apartment block, 40 large stones were found in the western Slovakian town of Holíč. At first they appeared natural, but the largest, which measured 6.8 meters in length, was found to have unusual engravings on it and a human skeleton lay underneath it. This prompted the ethnologist Rudolf Urscher to visit the site and carry out an excavation, which he published in a book called The Stones of Forgotten Times. He excavated 40 megaliths, many with engravings, and 2 human burials, including the skulls. All of these stones were found lying horizontal, and 8 were aligned westwards towards the Morava River. The largest stone was perpendicular to this westwards alignment. Sandstone objects similar to the Neolithic fusiform axes found in France were excavated close to the site in Holíč, and a clay figurine similar to that produced by the Lengyel culture was found in the town. The Lengyel culture was also a Neolithic people in Central Europe that followed on from the linear pottery culture. However, it's not possible to directly date these artifacts or to associate them specifically with the megalithic site. Fragments of stone tools, burnt in some parts, were excavated from the site from the same stratigraphic level as the megaliths. The stones were then moved so that the construction of the apartment block could continue. After several relocations, they ended up being placed near the town castle and arranged in the shape of a sundial. In 2004, Charles Tanguy Leroux, who had worked on the Morbihan megalithic site in Brittany, visited the Holíč megaliths and wrote a detailed report categorizing the engravings. These engravings included zoomorphic and anthropomorphic motifs, as well as nested hoops and other forms. Leroux suggested that the megaliths may once have formed a circular structure. Based on photographs taken by Urscher and residual earthworks at the original site, it does seem possible that they formed part of a circular monument. The authors of the most recent paper on Holíč visited the megaliths in 2022. They found that all except one engraving had weathered significantly. Only 21 of the stones remained, the others supposedly having been taken away to be reused for construction, and the human bones and skulls had been lost. Unfortunately, the stones are not designated as a megalithic site and are therefore not protected in spite of the two reports published by Urscher and Leroux. There's still an argument that they might be natural. The authors of the paper note that the engravings might be comparable with those of other Neolithic megalithic sites in Europe, which would reinforce the notion that this is indeed a megalithic site dating to the 5th millennium BCE. Of course, it's also possible that the engravings were added at a later date to when the stones were worked. The researchers mention how the area was named Alba Ecclesia in 1331, the Latin for white combined with gathering, highlands, or church. Since the first church wasn't built there until 1397, they suggest that the name may have referred to the stones, which would have been a white, yellow, beige colour originally, and would have sat on an elevated area above the Morava River Valley. So, although this is pure speculation, they are saying that these megaliths would once have formed part of a monument whose prominence in the landscape could have influenced the name given to the area in the medieval period, and that its possible role as an ancient gathering place was perhaps preserved in memory. The new study published in the journal Heritage Science was carried out to contribute to the discussion on the origin and distribution of megalithic traditions. Although much has been lost from the site, the extant engravings, if contemporary with the stones, give an interesting insight into the symbolism of the people that created the monument. The researchers reconstructed the engravings on 3 stones from Holíč using 3D laser grammetry, archival photographs, and large-scale drawings. They then compared these with other European Neolithic motifs and also looked into possible astronomical alignments. The engraving on stone number 7 was in the best condition and is made up of long lines passing through a figure and intersecting with concentric circles that surround the central engraving. A head, leg, and tool can be made out, so it seems that the figure depicts a human. This figure measures 25 centimeters in length, and the diameter of the widest circle is 88 centimeters. The engraving on stone number 3 seems to show an animal with curved lines above it. It's not clear what type of animal is being depicted, but the researchers suggest it might be a sheep. This figure measures 20 centimeters in length. The third reconstructed engraving is on stone number 1, the largest stone, that's almost 7 meters in length. Although there are multiple engravings on the stone, only one was reconstructed for the purpose of this study. This engraving measures 90 centimeters on its longest part and appears to depict a tool. The researchers compared these 3 engravings with carvings from other prehistoric sites in Europe. One of these is Naquane, an archaeological park in the Val Camonica in Lombardy, Italy. This park contains 104 engraved rocks dating from the Neolithic to the Iron Age. They also include the famous Gavrinis megalithic passage tomb, which is highly decorated, dates to the Neolithic, and sits on an island in the Gulf of Morbihan in Brittany, France. Heading further north, they include an example from Achnabrek, a rock art site in Kilmartin Glen, Scotland. Although much of Balzi Rossi is Paleolithic, they also compare examples from this cave art site in Liguria, Italy, because it was still inhabited into the Neolithic, so some of its carvings might date to that period. For the comparison, another motif from Brittany, France was also included. A geometrical analysis of the concentric circular carvings on stone number 7 and the partial circles from stone number 3 was carried out, and it became apparent that the center of these circles was located on anatomically meaningful points, the head on the human figure and the heart on the animal figure. Since 8 of the stones were originally aligned westwards towards the Morava River, they would have been oriented towards sunset on the summer solstice, so there may have been some astronomical significance in the choice of placement as well. Although it's not possible to date the megalithic site, since the human bones went missing and no other datable artifacts were found associated with it, it is possible that it belonged to the Neolithic. The engravings do bear similarities to the other sites they are compared with, as well as other sites in Europe. However, these engravings are unusually complex. It's rare for geometric motifs to be combined with anthropomorphic and zoomorphic motifs in the way they are here. The precision with which the large concentric circles were carved is also impressive. I think this site is rather interesting, but since it's no longer in situ and no datable material was found alongside it which has survived, it's quite difficult to know anything about it with any certainty. Its anomalous nature is also noteworthy because such Neolithic megalithic traditions are rare in Slovakia and are rare in the rest of Central Europe. Megalithic tombs are common in Germany, but these belong to the later funnel-beaker culture. The Holíč site is distinctly different from the roundels that proliferate in the region. I think that unless other similar sites come to light in Slovakia, it's hard to make any solid conclusions about the Holíč megaliths. That's it. Let me know what you think about this site in the comments, and I'll see you next time.